The rain was merciless that night, hammering down on the city streets with the weight of 1,000 unshed tears. The neon lights of the downtown skyline blurred behind the downpour, painting the world in streaks of blue and red. On a dimly lit corner, beneath the flickering sign of a small diner that had just closed for the night, a young waitress sat on the cold pavement, her uniform drenched, her hair plastered to her face. She pressed her knees to her chest, trembling not just from the chill, but from the storm inside her heart. Her name was Lily, and tonight she had lost almost everything she had been holding on to. Just hours ago, Lily had been rushing between tables, balancing plates with weary hands, forcing smiles at customers while hiding her exhaustion. She was used to it, being invisible, being treated as though she was worth no more than the tray she carried. But tonight, when her manager told her she was being cut from her shifts due to slow business, it felt like the last fragile string holding her together had finally snapped. She had rent due in 2 days, an empty refrigerator at home, and not a soul to turn to. And so, when the rain poured down and the diner lights went off, Lily sat there, unable to move, sobbing into the darkness because it was the only place where she could. Before we dive deeper into her life-changing encounter, I want to pause for a moment. If you believe in kindness, in the power of second chances, and in the idea that one act of compassion can change a life forever, please take a second to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Hopeful Stories. Your support helps us bring more emotional, inspiring stories to light. Back on the corner of that street, a black car pulled up slowly, its headlights cutting through the sheets of rain. Inside sat Alexander Hayes, a billionaire whose name was etched across skyscrapers and magazine covers. Known for his brilliance in business and ruthless reputation in boardrooms, Alexander was not the type of man anyone would associate with late-night drives in the rain. Yet here he was, restless, unable to sleep, circling the city in silence, as though searching for something he couldn't name. When his eyes caught sight of the young woman huddled against the diner wall, something inside him stirred. At first, he considered driving past. It wasn't his concern, but the way her shoulders shook, the way she clung to herself, as though the world had abandoned her, he couldn't. He stopped the car, stepped out into the storm, and without a word, extended his umbrella over her. Lily flinched, startled, and lifted her tear-streaked face. What she saw wasn't just a stranger. It was a man with eyes that held a quiet intensity, the kind of gaze that saw through walls people built around themselves. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other, the waitress who had nothing, and the billionaire who seemingly had it all. Then, in a voice calm yet firm, Alexander told her to come with him. She hesitated, fear mingling with desperation. But when she tried to stand, the exhaustion nearly toppled her. Without thinking, Alexander caught her, steadying her as though she was far more precious than she believed herself to be. The drive to his penthouse was silent, broken only by the rhythmic patter of rain against the car windows. Lily sat stiffly, clutching the edge of her seat, wondering if she was making a mistake. But the warmth of the car, the clean scent of leather, and the faint kindness in the man beside her gave her a fragile sense of safety she hadn't felt in years. By the time they arrived, her body was trembling with cold. Alexander led her into his penthouse, an expanse of glass and steel high above the city, where the storm outside looked like a painting rather than a threat. It felt like another world. The marble floors, the soft glow of lights, the faint hum of classical music. Lily had never stepped into a place so far removed from her reality. Alexander handed her a towel and a blanket, and as she wrapped herself in them, she broke down all over again. She apologized, embarrassed for her tears, but Alexander simply stood there, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. He had spent years surrounded by people who only spoke to him for money, for power, for influence. And now, here was someone who expected nothing from him. Someone raw, vulnerable, painfully real. As the hours passed, Lily told him her story in fragments. About the long shifts at the diner. About the tiny apartment with peeling paint. About the father who left when she was little, and the mother who worked herself sick only to pass away too soon. She confessed how she had fought to stay afloat, how every paycheck vanished into rent, bills, and debts she didn't even create. She confessed how tired she was of pretending she was okay. Alexander listened in silence. Something in her words pierced through the armor he wore every day. He was a man who lived surrounded by abundance, yet haunted by emptiness. A man who had built empires, but never a home. And as Lily spoke, he realized he was hearing echoes of his own loneliness in hers. By dawn, the rain had stopped, but the city was still cloaked in gray. Alexander offered her breakfast, something simple, eggs and toast prepared by his staff. Lily ate quietly, as though unused to being served. She thought once she finished, he would ask her to leave, that this strange moment of kindness was only temporary. But instead, Alexander surprised her. He told her to stay. Just for one night more. To rest. To breathe. To not carry the world on her shoulders for a little while. Lily's eyes filled with tears again. No one had ever told her she could rest. No one had ever given her space to simply exist without proving her worth. She whispered, "Thank you," and those words carried more weight than Alexander expected. The days that followed blurred into something she had never imagined. Alexander let her stay in the guest room of his penthouse. He didn't ask for anything in return. He didn't pry, didn't judge. Instead, he gave her the dignity of choice, the freedom to leave when she wished. But Lily didn't leave. Not yet. For the first time in her life, she felt seen, valued, and safe. What she didn't know was that Alexander was changing too. Her presence brought a warmth into his life he hadn't felt in years. She would hum softly while washing dishes, leave little notes of gratitude for the staff, and smile at the sunrise as though it was a gift. Small things, ordinary things. But for Alexander, who had lived in a world of contracts and numbers, it was extraordinary. Still, not everyone understood. The whispers began, rumors among business partners, questions from acquaintances. Why was the billionaire housing a waitress? What was she to him? But Alexander didn't care. For the first time, his choices weren't about profit or power. They were about something far more important: compassion, humanity, love. One evening, as Lily stood by the massive glass window overlooking the glittering skyline, she told Alexander she would leave soon. She didn't want to overstay. She didn't want to be a burden. Alexander looked at her, really looked at her, and in that moment, he realized she was no burden at all. She was the missing piece of his life he never knew he needed. His voice was steady, almost a whisper, when he said the words that would change both their lives. Stay tonight. It wasn't just an invitation to remain in his home. It was a plea to remain in his life. To stay, not just for one night, but for all the nights that followed. Lily's heart ached with fear and hope tangled together. She had been abandoned before, disappointed before, used before. But as she searched his eyes, she found no judgment, no pity, only sincerity. For the first time, she believed she might deserve more than struggle and sorrow. She might deserve love. And so she stayed. From that night on, everything changed. Lily slowly rebuilt her life with Alexander's support, not as someone dependent on him, but as someone who finally had the stability to chase her dreams. She returned to school, pursued her passion for art, and found her voice again. Alexander, in turn, found something money could never buy: a partner who loved him not for his wealth, but for his heart. Their story became a quiet testament to the power of kindness. One rainy night, one act of compassion had transformed two broken souls into something whole. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Hopeful Stories for more true-to-life, emotional tales that remind us of the goodness that still exists in the world. And before we end, we have a special request for you. Comment below with the words "Stay tonight" if you believe in the power of love, kindness, and second chances. Because sometimes, all it takes to change a life is the courage to stay.